Imagine walking into a serene, quiet chapel, only to find something deeply unsettling. Picture this, a humble nun living her life in prayer and devotion, tucked away in a secluded chapel. Her days are filled with the tranquil melodies of hymns, the comforting rhythm of rosary beads slipping through fingers, and the solemn silence of solitude. Yet, this silence is broken one fateful day. In the sacred sanctuary of the confession booth, a shocking sight awaits. A strange object, stained with the disturbing hue of dried blood, lies ominously. The sight is jarring, a stark contrast to the pure, peaceful surroundings. An object so out of place, so sinister, it sends a shiver down the spine of our humble nun. But what could this object be? A weapon, a relic, a sinister token left behind? The mystery remains, leaving us to speculate and shudder at the possibilities. The bloodied object was a gruesome sight, a chilling indication that something was horribly wrong. She tried to ignore the bloodied object, but strange things began to happen. As the days rolled on, the tranquil monastery that our nun had once called home transformed into an arena of the uncanny. The air seemed to thicken, carrying with it an unshakable sense of dread that hung heavy in the hallowed halls. Her nights were no longer filled with the comforting silence of solitude, but with an orchestra of eerie whispers that slid under the door and wound their way around her bed. They were unintelligible, yet filled with an urgency she couldn't ignore. Each whispered word was like a cold finger tracing the back of her neck, leaving a trail of goosebumps and raising the hairs on her arms. Throughout the day, the corners of her eyes danced with shadows. They were fleeting, always just out of sight, but undeniably there. They moved in ways that were unnatural, like smoke caught in a swirling wind. She found herself constantly turning, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was lurking just beyond her vision. But every time she was met with nothing more than the familiar sights of the monastery. The worst part, perhaps, was the feeling of being watched. It was a constant presence, like a shroud that wrapped itself around her. It was as if 1,000 unseen eyes were trained on her, following her every move, observing her every action. The sensation was so intense that she could almost feel the weight of their gaze, pressing down on her, making her heart pound and her breath hitch. Each passing day, the occurrences grew more disturbing, more relentless. It was as if an unseen force was slowly tightening its grip around her, pushing her further into the depths of fear. She could no longer ignore the bloodied object, nor the chilling events it had seemingly set in motion. Her once peaceful existence was now shattered, replaced by a haunting reality she couldn't escape. Each passing day, the occurrences grew more disturbing, more relentless, as if something was closing in on her. In desperation, she decided to confront whatever was haunting her. With a heart pounding like a drum and a resolve as solid as the hallowed ground she stood on, our brave nun took it upon herself to face the unseen entity. Choosing the sanctuary of the chapel for this decisive encounter, she initiated a special prayer session. It was not the usual prayers whispered in the solitude of her chambers. This was a plea for peace, a plea for deliverance, a plea to the heavens to intervene. Her voice echoed through the chapel, a symphony of desperation and determination, bouncing off the cold stone walls and reaching out into the unknown. But as she prayed fervently, an uncanny silence fell over the chapel. The usual comforting echo of her voice was replaced by an eerie quiet. The doors of the chapel, heavy and steadfast, slammed shut with a force that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. In an instant, the warm glow of the candles that had been her only companions in this spiritual battle were extinguished, their light snuffed out, as if by an unseen hand. Then there was nothing but darkness. The kind of darkness that is more than just an absence of light, but a presence of something sinister. The kind of darkness that makes your skin crawl and your breath hitch. And then, in the chilling darkness, she heard it, a low, guttural growl. She braced herself, ready to face the unseen horror. All the whispers of the convent, all the prayers she uttered, it was time they served their purpose. The menacing growl amplified, ripping through the silence like a beast on the loose. An icy breath slithered its way down her neck, making her shudder. The anticipation was palpable. The suspense was bone-chilling. As she turned around to face it, her scream echoed around the empty chapel. But what was it that she saw?